Hello, welcome to Life Matters. I'm your host, Brendan O'Connell. Well, in this state, or Commonwealth of Massachusetts, we have politics, and we've had a recent election. And we're sitting today with one of the state committeemen for the Republican Party, and we hope to find out, is the Republican Party pro-life or not pro-life, or how does it stand in the state versus the Democratic Party? So this gentleman has come in all the way from Watertown. I'm not sure if it was a covered wagon, but he made it, thank goodness. And we're going to ask him how he sees the lay of the land. Well, welcome, Steve Aylward.
Thanks, Brendan. Thanks for having me on.
Steve, I interview many pro-life people here in Massachusetts and around the country. How did you become pro-life yourself? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
You know, I don't think I ever became pro-life. I think that I was always pro-life. I was born a Catholic. It was always just more than common sense, more than religious. It was just common sense to me that a child in the womb is a child of God. It's a miracle whenever you have a baby. I had 4 children. My wife had 4 children, and every one of them is a miracle. There's nothing, and then there's something. And I just think that it's just in my nature or my DNA or whatever that I just have to believe that child of God is a miracle, and God creates that creature, and who are any of us to take that child's life?
Now, you've been involved in local politics in Watertown. How did you get involved with the local politics, and then the progression to the state committee where you are now? Why did you decide to run for state committee, or is it the same reasons you ran for local?
I think I ran for local. My children were in the school system, so I ran for school committee. That was kind of a no-brainer. I think so many of us see some of the things that go on in the schools that make no sense to us, and we know that with all the money that schools spend nowadays, they can be better. A lot of good teachers, a lot of good people in the school system, but you can always be better. But I think after my children got a little bit older, Brendan, I realized that the Republican Party was really failing its constituents, and I think that's why, probably the same reason you ran, is that the Republican Party could do better. And when you're only at 10 or 11% of the whole population of the state, I think there was a need for people to jump in and represent the Republican constituents.
I see. Now, on the state committee, before you came in to the state committee, what was the lay of the land at the state committee? Can you tell us a little bit about that, how many members there are, and how many were, let's say, pro-life or, say, traditional marriage or social conservatives versus how many were not?
Well, as you know, there's 80 members. There's 40 state senate districts, and a man and a woman from each district represent the constituents there. So a total of 80 people on the state committee. And they're elected every 4 years. So there'll be an election coming up in 2016. They're elected at the time of the presidential primary. So you and I were both elected to the state committee back when Romney won the primary in March of 2012. And I think before that, there was a much more liberal, pro-establishment type of state committee. But in 2012, as you know, we swept a lot of the seats, and now it's about 50-50 on the state committee.
Mm-hmm. So. And do you see, have there been any good things that have happened with that change of from really a cakewalk for the Liberals to now it's a rather contentious on the state committee? What kind of things do you see that you feel are good developments in the state committee since you got elected?
Well, certainly Chanel Prunier from the coalition being elected as national committee woman, I think was a great tribute to all the conservatives on there. The other thing is the platform, where we added some conservative language to the platform. Nothing devastating, but some good conservative language, as you know, saying that every abortion is a tragedy. We didn't go condemning anybody or anything. We didn't go condemning any people, but we just said what we believe, conservative family values. And then the last thing, Brendan, I think this has escaped a lot of, and this is thanks to you, is in 2012, I'm sorry, the earlier convention, 2010, the Planned Parenthood had taken a seat there and been given a seat at the convention.
Oh, at 08.
Right. And then thanks to your efforts, we made sure that Planned Parenthood, if they wanted to be there, had to go through hoops and to get there, and Planned Parenthood wasn't there. And in my estimation,
Or
is our
other
convention is
factions,
Republican
too.
and other factions. And in my contention with the Republican Party, we stand for life, and they shouldn't have been there. So, and that's tribute to you. It really is.
Oh, thank you. That's awfully nice of you to say. And now we've had. How do you see, for instance, Chanel Prunier? She's a national state committee woman now that we elected her on the state committee too, replacing a very pro-abortion individual, and Chanel is pro-life. What kind of an impact can she have on a national level, representing the Commonwealth of
I
Massachusetts?
think it's just the fact that she goes to RNC meetings and she's there as a pro-life representative from Massachusetts, in and of itself, I think says a message to the national parties, the RNC. I think the RNC sometimes tends to waver. I mean, certainly the Massachusetts Republican Party wavers to the middle and to the left. And I think there's a tendency for the RNC, the national party, to waver to the left. So it's good just to have her there and set that standard that we are not liberal.
Mm-hmm. Now, Massachusetts Republicans entrenched liberal, and they like to call themselves Rockefeller Republicans. I know one of the state committee men called himself a Rockefeller Republican. What are they an endangered species, or are they so well entrenched that they can beat back any conservative, social conservative insurgency?
Well, I think the social conservatives win every time, especially when we run for state committee against liberal Republicans. I think the Republican base, the people that vote for state committee people, want to hear our message. They want to hear our common sense message. And it goes farther than just family values or abortion. It goes to how we run our schools. Common Core, for instance. Very, very bad notion if you're a Republican. However, some Republicans who run our party believe in Common Core. I think Jeb Bush, for instance, is one who's talking about Common Core as a good thing. And I think for the Republican Party, we certainly believe in education, but I think we believe that things are done better at a local level than at a federal level. So I think that conservative values always resonate with Republicans. And if we run as conservatives, we win.
Mm-hmm. And do you ascribe to the notion that if we're just Democrat light, we're going to lose all the time to the Democrats?
I think that if you're given a choice between a Democrat and a Republican running as a Democrat, you're going to vote for the Democrat every time, and that's proven. That's a fact. And we saw it with Scott Brown. When Scott Brown won his special election in 2009 and 10, he was very much in the middle, if not to the right. As he moved farther and farther to the left, when he ran against Elizabeth Warren, he lost.
And his voting record while he was in the U.S. Senate was much more to the left and liberal than what he portrayed when he ran in that special election.
Because what happens is, I'm sorry, Brendan, a lot of Republicans stay home. They see that and they stay home. And that's the margin by which our Republican candidates lose, is the Republicans stay home. And the idea is to get the Republicans out. And the only way to get the Republicans out is talk about good conservative values. Even things like Second Amendment rights, very important to that conservative Republican base. And if they feel like the candidates are abandoning them, they're not going to come out and vote.
Now, you were very much involved in the repealing of the automatic gas tax, one of the principal players around the state. Tell us about that. How it came about, and did the legislature help you, or did you have any financial backers? Can you give us a little bit of background about that?
It was David against Goliath. It definitely was. We were one of only 3 ballot questions in the entire country that was all volunteer. And as you know, you help get signatures, so you know. We got 146,000 signatures from all volunteers. We didn't pay for one signature. In the campaign itself, Brendan, we were outspent 31-1. Our opponents had...
That's an enormous number, 31-1.
They had $3.1 million, including the help of AAA, and we had about $100,000. And most of our donations were Obama-esque, in that they were $10, $20 donations from the little guy. Their donations were from big business. So all of these Democrats who talk about how horrified they are by big business getting involved in politics, all of a sudden, they were more than willing to get in bed with big business to defeat this anti-tax question. So when you hear liberals talk about Citizens United, blah, 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 when it works to their advantage, they fold. They were in bed with big business on this one. They lost. We ran probably the best ballot question initiative in the country, and we ultimately won because we had a good message. Our message was not don't fix the roads and bridges. We want the roads and bridges fixed. That wasn't the point. The point is they put in an automatic tax increase that was going to be automatic every single year, and no matter who you voted for as a legislator.
On January 1st of each new year.
And no matter who you voted for as a legislator, your taxes were going to go up. And inflation isn't the mundane thing that we know it as now, 1% and 2%. Old guys like me, you wouldn't remember, you're too young, Brendan. But in 1981...
Physiologically, I'm young.
In 1981...
Chronologically, we're the same age.
Inflation was 16%, coming off 15%. So inflation does have its times when it roars. And you don't want gasoline tax price increases going up 15, 16% year after year and compounding. You just don't want that. If the legislature wants to fix roads and bridges, which they should, take a vote. Just be a man up, take the vote.
If they want to raise the taxes.
If they want to raise it, yeah, be accountable.
Now, there's a more subtle implication to the defeat, or saying, actually, you had to say yes to the repeal of the automatic gas tax increase. Can you tell us what were people thinking around the country? Were legislators hoping to get off the hook, or did the Democrats have other ideas of having this automatic tax increase on other types of things?
Oh, I think that was entirely the case. I think that, first of all, you have to realize that legislators in other states have tried to link taxes to inflation, and it fails every time. It gets repealed for the most part. But I think if we had not repealed this, the idea was the state legislature was going to link every other tax to inflation. Like they linked their salaries to inflation recently, as you know, salary increases. I think you were going to see every other tax, from real estate taxes to excise taxes to every other tax, linked to inflation, so nobody would ever have to vote on it. And that's just wrong, because as economic circumstances change, sometimes you need more taxes, sometimes you need less. That's why we elect legislators.
Mm-hmm. And the fundamental core thing is you want the legislators to vote on, if they're going to try to increase our taxes, you want them to vote on it and have their name ascribed to that vote.
Right.
That, Joe Blow or Joe Smith decided to vote to increase your taxes, then he has to face the consequences of the public, the voting public, the next election cycle.
And let's remember, too, the Reason Foundation study that worked to our advantage, that came out right before the election and proved that Massachusetts spends 5 times as much on average per mile as every other state. And we are the highest, or the second highest in the country in per mile spending. And we spend something like $75,000 a mile just on administration, not even on road repair. $75,000 a mile just on administration. So we have the money. The money's being mismanaged, misspent, whatever. But when you are second in the nation and you outspend the average 5 to 1 in road repair, then you have the money. Something's wrong somewhere. And we were able to prove that. So the populace, the voters paid attention, they listened, and they voted accordingly. And so now Massachusetts, the people who spend our tax money have to be held to account.
Well, that's great. That was a wonderful victory. I mean, being outspent 31 or 33 to 1 or whatever it was is really amazing that our side won that particular initiative.
And the best part of the campaign was collecting signatures with you with Roche Brothers.
Yeah, I noticed you had a skip in your step when you left there. That was.
I did. Thanks to you, Brendan. Thanks to you.
Where do you see the Republican Party? How can the Republican Party grow in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and how can they put, as you see it, and can they use social issues to grow the party?
I think so. The whole Democrat Party, which, by the way, I need to give credit where credit is due. The Massachusetts Democratic Party is one of the best political parties in the nation, if not the world. I mean, they know how to run a party. They know politics. And almost all of their platform is social issues. So when I always get a kick out of Republicans saying to me, oh no, we can't have any social issues in our platform. We should be all fiscal. Oh, really? Look at the Democrat platform. You think it's all fiscal? It has nothing to do with fiscal. It has to do with social. Because for voters, it's a quality of life. It's not just all about taxes. They're important. It's not just all about spending. It's about education. It's about immigration. It's about terrorism. It's about everything that affects your ability to go to work. Traffic. It's about all of those things. And I think that the party has to be smart enough to get past this idea that we have to ignore the social issues. Maybe in some cases you don't.
The Republican Party.
The Republican Party. Maybe in some cases you don't lead with the social issues. But I want a party that understands that it's a quality of life thing as much as a taxes thing. Whenever we run away from those things, again, we lose. People forget, and you know this, Brendan, Ronald Reagan won this state twice, and he was very much a conservative Republican, but his message resonated, and people believed in him, and they believed that he was going to take care of them and do the right thing by them. So it really doesn't have anything to do with the social issues. It has to do with being a party that stands up for the little guy.
Do you feel that it's many of these Republicans that border on libertarianism, that they're afraid or they just haven't formulated well a response to the social issues? For instance, the Democrats will often say, oh, abortion, it's between a woman and her doctor. And do we, on the social conservative side, do you feel that a lot of Republicans get weak-kneed and on when they hear the other side say something like that? They just don't have a comeback, a verbal comeback to that?
I think there's a lot of Republicans who are anti-abortion, who are afraid to speak up on it, because the other side has done a good job of making, believe it or not, people who believe in life like you, and you know this because you've been accused of things, are the bad guy. And I always think that is an incredible thing, that if you believe in the sanctity of life, you let others condemn you as the bad guy. You know, I always refer to the statement of Ronald Reagan, which I love, my favorite statement on abortion, when he said, I noticed that all the people who are pro-abortion have already been born. Mm-hmm. You know? I mean, so you have to be strong in your values, and people like that in politicians. You know, one of the things about liberal politicians is that they got it down pat. They make speeches, they pound the table, and at the end of the day, no matter how ridiculous the notion they're arguing about, they make the people believe that they are standing up for them. And if we're going to believe in life, we have to be strong in our argument, and we have to make people believe that we're right. We cannot be defined by the other side. We can't be. Anybody who tries to tell me that I'm a bad guy for believing in the sanctity of life gets an earful from me. They may not agree with me, but I certainly defend my position.
Mm-hmm. I see. Well, we still have quite a few people on the state committee that are, I call them, they're financially oriented. They're not. They're vacuous when it comes to the social issues. They really don't know, and they don't want to know. I think a lot of them, which is a problem. I mean, it's a problem that has to be resolved, and I guess
it is. And I think too, because our party is not very strong in Massachusetts, as we know, we're only at 10 or 11%. It does leave ourselves. We do leave ourselves open to infiltration by Democrats. And I'm not saying that anybody on the state committee is definitely a Democrat, registered as a Republican, but when you think of some of the views they have on just about everything, even the fiscal issues, it makes you wonder. We've had people run for office who I really question whether they're really a Republican based upon their voting record. And again, not just the social issues, the fiscal issues as well. So we have to be careful as a party not get too weak, because then we can be more and more infiltrated.
Well, now we have recently elected Charlie Baker and Karen Polito. Karen flipped on one of the social issues, and they're really on the other side. Is there a way to change them or soften their hard stance? They appear to be both pro-abortion and pro-homosexual marriage. How can we as social conservatives approach them to perhaps see the light from our side?
You know, it's a good question, and I wish I had a good answer, but I don't. But I think that as we get more and more people elected who are social conservatives, and we've done a good job of getting people like Jim Lyons and Mark Lombardo, right? There's a lot of good people who we've gotten elected. And I think the more we can show that we can get people elected who are strong Republicans with strong family values, get them elected, I think that those are the things that people like Charlie Baker and Karen Polito will hopefully pay attention to. I think they're so enamored with the notion that they have to get the Globe endorsement, or they have to be in the middle, or they have to be that they just move automatically. And I think, again, the more we show victory, the more I think people are going to see that, you shouldn't be ashamed of what you believe in.
Mm-hmm. Well, now, what are your hopes for the state committee going forward? That they see the world through your prism, of course.
I mean, that's what politics is all about, trying to convince people that your ideas are the right ideas. I mean, whether it's on the state committee or whether it's in a legislative race or on the school committee, you're always trying to build that argument. I'm just hoping that the Republican Party keeps moving in the right direction. We keep supporting conservative values. We keep just pressing the fight. And again, I think the more we win as Republicans, and I think we will. And I know, Brendan, when we came in 2012, there was a lot of questions about the Republican Party and the way it was run. And I really do think it's time to give some people some credit for changing some things and being a little more upfront about things. We have a long way to go, as you know. Mm-hmm. But I think they're getting it. And I think it's because of people like you on the state committee who presses them for answers on Planned Parenthood, and we get the result that we want. And there's a lot of things that have gone on where we as Republican conservatives have gotten what we want on the state committee. So we just have to, it's always a fight. You always have the other side who wants to, be more like Democrats, and we just have to keep up that fight. And fortunately, you and I are both young, so we have lots of energy, right?
Absolutely, that's right.
Even though you are a Georgetown guy, I'll have to carry you a little on my back.
No question about it. BC Eagles are predominant here in Boston, at least. Now, do you foresee the day where a quote-unquote Northeast Republican can ameliorate its stances on social issues so that they more reflect the national situation? Because if you look at, for instance, the Republicans' national platform, it's very pro-life.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the Democratic platform, I happened to watch a Democratic convention last time, and they didn't even want to acknowledge God, I think.
Acknowledge God, yeah.
Yeah, which I found incredible that they would reach to that level. And it took the mayor of Los Angeles 3 different times, and then he had to gavel it, with the audience booing, booing God, basically, the Democrats. What about our side? I mean, we've got a guy like Bill Weld who comes back from New York, and we've got this other guy, these Republicans that are not. I mean, they're very injurious to the Republican Party at this point. What do we? Is there things that we can do to? Well,
I think we did one thing on the state committee recently, and that was a good thing. I mean, we basically reprimanded the Republicans, including Bill Weld and a gentleman who used to be chair of the party in years past.
Of the entire state, chair of the entire state?
For endorsing Democrats. Now, imagine a high-ranking Democrat. Can you imagine Deval Patrick endorsing a Republican state Senate candidate? It would never happen, ever happen. And that's why I say the Massachusetts Democratic Party is a well-run party. They don't allow that. On our party, we're all kumbaya. Everybody gets along. If you want to endorse a liberal Democrat and you're the former governor, it's accepted. And I think that's a tribute to the state committee that we didn't allow it this time. We said, no, we take offense to what you did. We object to what you did. And hopefully the next Republican that comes along and thinks about doing it will think twice before they do it. I mean, Richard Tassay is another example. Ran for Congress up in Essex County. He refused to come to our convention because he wanted to make a statement that he disagreed with those nominal changes in our platform. And again, there's a way to do it without embarrassing the party. Never would be allowed by the Massachusetts Democratic Party. And it was allowed by us, and he was still our representative for Congress, but I don't think many of us were happy about it.
Mm-hmm. I see. Well, Steve, thank you so much for braving the weather out there today. It's a stormy day in Boston, and we hope that you continue on with having success on the state committee level. And thank you for being pro-life and sticking up for the
And
pro-life cause.
thanks for all you do, Brendan. Appreciate it.
All right, take care.
Okay.
Well, we hope you found today's show to be unique, informative, content-rich, truthful, and thought-provoking. Thanks for watching. I'm Brendan O'Connell, your friend for life.